Hi, welcome to the Property Wolf Podcast, your guide to South Florida real estate and more. I'm your host, Jonathan Woolf from Wolf Realty, licensed real estate broker and third generation Floridian. Today, our first episode, and I can't think of a better way to kick it off with a good friend of mine, Dennis Mondul, who is a wealth of knowledge in the HVAC industry, which is a big part of home ownership in South Florida. So with that being said, Dennis, before we get started in talking about real estate and air conditioning, how did we meet? How do we know each other?
If I remember correctly, we both went to the same church. In that church, there was a very intense focus on developing men to be good Christians, and to take on the mantle of masculinity. And we called the guys to do some hard things, be forgiving, be loving.
Do you remember the group where we met?
Yes, it was
study that we were working on.
If I remember correctly, because we did several dozen studies. It was a study about different worldviews.
The Truth Project.
The Truth Project was the name of the video series that we were using, but it was all about understanding reality as it is, as opposed to how we can create it for political reasons. It was really interesting to see how you really dug into it. You found it really fascinating. You were engaging full tilt in learning what we were talking about.
Yeah, I do remember that. I just got saved and found that church, Christ Fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the class, and I just thanked you for, for just helping me or praying with me or something or engaging with me. And I think we've been friends ever since. I'm thinking that's got to be like 18 years ago.
It's approaching 20 years. You're right.
So my question too, on that note, for me, why did you take the time? And why did you invest in me over all these years?
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't a hard thing. I grew up, born and raised in South Florida, third generation, like you. My grandfather was one of the early U.S. citizens that settled Key West. And back then, 120 some years ago, you had to be approved by the town council, which were all descendants of pirates. And so, fortunately, he was approved. My dad was born in Key West. In the 1930s, my family moved to Miami, where our whole generation was born. And so finding somebody who was also a native, whose dad grew up just south of Miami.
Yep.
And we had a lot of family things that were in common. And that's kind of hard to find anymore.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing. Well, I'm glad you did. I'm glad we stuck together. I can't even believe it's been almost 18 years or something like that. Still working together on both fronts, on the business front and on the faith front. My next question is, let's talk about the air conditioning now. What would you tell sellers or buyers? What should they think about when they're buying or selling their home for their air conditioning? Like, is it a good investment to upgrade and install a new one? or tuning it up, or what else? What should they look for in a air conditioning company who's going to maybe do that type of work for them? Or
Sure,
inspection.
sure.
Yeah.
Knowing what condition the equipment is if you're buying a home is going to make your first several years as a homeowner kind of disappointing or maybe much better. Today, a properly installed system might be as low as $7,000 to $10,000. It is not unusual today, just for air conditioning with certain kinds of equipment, to invest $13,000 to $16,000. And that's in a residential system. And if you're doing business with somebody that's trying to keep the price low, because people think it's kind of like buying a refrigerator, it's a plug and play thing. What does the equipment cost? Little markup, and that should be it. Reality is, it's a very, very sophisticated and complex thing to put in HVAC equipment and have it work properly for the homeowner.
And I agree. And actually, we've worked together on a few other fronts, because I've done air conditioning for years, and I've done air conditioning with you and for you, and I've done real estate with you as well.
Yep.
So we've done a lot together, and I learned a lot from you. Continue still learning from you, and it could be a tough thing if a homeowner buys a home and they purchase the home and put all their money in investing and buying it, and then within a month or 2 or 6 months they have to buy a whole new system, which could cost 10 grand. That's a significant amount of money for most people
Yes, it is.
that I know. And what do you think about having an HVAC contractor actually inspecting an air conditioning versus a home inspector?
If you're in the process of buying a home, that would be a really important thing to focus on. Get a reputable contractor, find out from him what condition is the air conditioning system in, what condition is the ductwork in, because air conditioning is not machines. That's the first 10% of the equation. It's also controls, insulation, how much heat is coming into the structure, which means that much heat will have to be taken out of the interior. So how well sealed are the doors, windows, insulation values, all that. Having somebody give you an idea on the equipment, how well the home is insulated, and the condition of the ductwork. How much is it leaking? How much air conditioning is going into the attic?
Well, that's another part of the system. The ductwork. You have the air handler, the ductwork, and the condenser, basically, right?
Yep.
And you have your control, which is your thermostat.
Correct.
So there's a few other pieces to it than just
and making them all come together and remove the right amount of heat for the condition of the structure is a bit specialized and worthy of having evaluated before you invest.
And with older homes too,
yes.
They tend to have they're not up to date with codes and insulation, and sometimes they have a higher heat load and what do we say, air leakage through windows or whatnot, different doors and stuff like that.
Yes, and knowing what it is ahead of time, how much it would take to resolve issues that are found by a competent inspector, air conditioning contractor doing the inspecting. That'll go a long way in increasing the quality of life as a homeowner early on.
Yeah, like you said, it's not like a refrigerator. You just plug it in or something. It's not that. Doesn't really work. There's a lot that can go into how it functions and works. it's a lot more complex than most people would think to actually get it installed properly and or running properly after it's had issues. And if you hire the wrong person, they could potentially make things worse because they're inexperienced in what they're doing.
And it takes a lot of money to install the equipment. If it's the wrong size, just a little bit too big, could really ruin quality of life for a long time.
So let's, I got another question for you. So I know that we've done real estate together.
Yes.
And you're an investor and a landlord. So I want to talk a little bit about that with you. So the first question would be, we did a transaction and it was in Palm Beach Gardens, right? We did, or was that Riviera?
No, it was between North Lake and
Single family.
Single family.
That you were doing a flip.
Yeah, we bought a very beat up structure, borderline demolition structure. Replaced virtually everything. Turned it into a very nice residence. And one of the things my wife and I agreed early on in this flipping business is there are people that can put a lot of lipstick on and spend almost no money and make it look nice to sell, but it makes life really difficult for whoever buys a flip sometimes because of that. We did what we did to the structure, what we would want done if we were moving in, and we made that place in Lake Park.
It was a nice home when you were done with it. It looked good.
We were tempted. We have a very nice home. We were tempted to, you know what, this would be a really comfortable place to live. And so anyhow, put it together that way, and had enough margin to sell at market price. And one of the things we chose to do is to make sure we were in no risk situations. If we did it right and couldn't sell it because we couldn't get enough margin to sell it, we were going to keep it and run it out. So
that's just almost what you did. But I did find a buyer.
Yes.
And we got a contract.
In fact, we probably ought to get into that. I know you remember it because it was painful for me to watch what I put you through by handling that property. It started
off good.
It started off well. Good. It showed well. It was, and again, the guys that did all of the work, quality guys, and we were tempted to move in ourselves. Then we had an individual come who expressed a liking of the property, and very early on in the communication, everything that was communicated seemed like communicated in anger. Which I did not understand. I mean, we were trying to make this a...
Well, you did a seller concession. You put in new windows.
Yeah.
Which wasn't a part of the beginning part of the deal. That wasn't part of the deal.
Right.
We ended up negotiating that. And
we put in hurricane windows, but the windows that were in there were adequate. And shutters would have worked just fine. What's the name of that
company that you used for the windows? Was it New World, or what was it?
You know what? I don't remember. That was a few years ago. We put windows in other properties too. I think
it was New World window. I don't know. I can't remember.
Could well be. But anyhow, this person, right from the very beginning, when we're trying to make it easy for her to bring her family in and make this a home and an enjoyable place to live for the family for a long term, she out of nowhere got very adversarial. Everything she communicated was out of anger. And And it didn't matter
Well,
what was shared, she would twist it around into something that wasn't said at all.
we ran into some setbacks. The windows didn't come in on time, and we had to extend the closing date once or twice, I think.
And that didn't help her attitude with anything either.
No.
But she was set off before the little delays.
Yeah.
And it's to this day, my wife and I look at that and wonder what that poor person, what was that poor person had? What had she lived that created this?
You could say that. I could agree. It was very difficult. She's rude to me. I've been nothing but polite, and with the transaction and going through, and she was, I wouldn't say the most difficult person that I've dealt with, but I would say she's up there.
She ranks.
I'm
sure.
Yeah.
Now here's the big picture, the big issue as to why I wanted to touch on this, and I still talk about this with people that are thinking of getting into flipping or real estate as an investment. We were ready to pull the plug because it was just so painful to communicate with this prospective buyer. And I said, and I gave you permission, Jonathan, if this person is so nasty to deal with that we just need to start from scratch and start over, you have my permission to cut the cord. And your response was, no, we will make this work. And I'm sitting there thinking, Slim, I don't know how you're going to pull this thing together from anywhere. But you did. And we were, to this day, we are so thankful that you stuck out dealing with that individual and so caustic and got it closed.
Well, let me say this too, like exactly where you're at. I find real estate is challenging, especially in this market now, but I find sellers in the same place where they're ready to give up. They're upset. They had enough. They're ready to start over or take it off the market. And that's when my patience and my intuition on how to deal with situations and just continuing it, that small few feet from where we're at to the closing table, somehow I've learned over the years and been very successful at getting it to the closing table after all kinds of stuff, just like what you were saying.
And you know what? It does not surprise me that you are the number one realtor in the Lantana market for 2 years running. As difficult as people's lives are, it shows up in how they do real estate transactions. And you have the wisdom to deal with them in the right way. And when they want to buy or they want to sell, but they're getting in their own way, you've had a way consistently in serving your customers to remove the blocks that they themselves put in the way. And
that's happened.
And that's special.
Well, yeah, thanks for saying that. And, I will take that in a stride, and we work hard, and we're glad to be the number one real estate broker and agent in our area. What I was going to say to what you were just saying there was, I lost my train of thought. What were you saying? We were talking about,
people having difficult lives, and it makes them very difficult to deal with.
Here's the thing with me that I think what makes me successful is, I'm in sales and I know how to take rejection. And I get it a lot. That's just sales. But I understand that people are in a very stressful time in their life. A lot of people have pretty much all or most of their money on the table. And I know that they're upset, and they sometimes don't understand the transaction in itself like I do, and they're upset, and they sometimes will lash out and be rude and say things and act what's the word I'm looking for? Act in a irrational way. And I don't hold that against them. I take a step back and I keep a even keel, let it rest for the minute, and continue on with trying what they hired me to do, which is to fulfill and close this transaction.
Right.
And that's what I do. And whether you know, I don't hold it against them. And most of the time, a couple days later, they come around and say, "Hey, John, sorry, I snapped on you. I'm very stressed out, and all that." And I get it, because I've sold my house too, and it's stressful. You get everything on a truck, or a truck coming, and you're waiting on the money and transferring the money. And I understand, and I don't hold it against them.
Yeah. Now, that's one kind of customer that I've observed you deal with. There's another kind of customer, and it's in the market you're in Central Palm Beach County. There are a lot of people that raise their family in their 3-bedroom, 1.5 or 2-bath home.
That's right.
Traditional Florida house. And now it's the widow that's alone, confused. Sometimes family members are adversarial, complicating their lives, and they have to sell their homes. And in the confusion, you will come back in and very gently re-explain what you've explained 2 or 3 or 4 times, and explain again why these processes are important. And you hold widows' hands and walk them through the process. And Jonathan, I am proud to know you and watch you take care of the widows the way you do. It is, there's a sweetness, there's a toughness to be in the business, and there's a sweetness that comes out automatically when it's called for. So very, very impressed with that. You can be tough as nails, and when it comes time to turn around and talk to the widow 10 minutes later, or the vet in his 80s and family, comrades, neighbors, friends, they're all gone. And he's having a tough time letting go, but he really doesn't have an option.
You know what I find? Thanks for saying that. And I do and that's part of a lot of my business is widows and elderly people who are changing different seasons of their life. And it's scary, and there's money involved, and different, it's a lot at stake. And I like to be there to give them that guidance and get them that check at the end of the day and get them on to where they're going next. Where was it going with that? I don't know.
Moving from tough as nails to being gentle and a good servant to people that need the attention, the softness.
Well, that's what I like a lot. That's what I really like to do in this business. I like to work with those people and help them and see it through, and work with everyone. But that's the most meaningful to me is when I'm working with a widow. Well, we'll just talk about the one I'm working with now, and this particular property that we're going to talk about later in the show that we're going to feature. Her husband died a couple years ago, so his income and things are not there. She can't maintain the house, and she's getting no help from the family members, And her sister's a friend of mine because I grew up with her son. So that's how I got the listing. I went over there. So we got it up for sale. It's on Hypaluxor Road. It's a 2-acre residential zoned AR I was telling you about.
Sounds like a great opportunity.
It's a beautiful property. Hypaluxor, just east of Jog Road on the south side of the road. And but I'm helping her not just with the real estate. I'm helping her with clearing the lot, selling. She's got some trailers, some equipment and stuff that her husband had that I'm helping her sell that to people and then getting her the money. And matter of fact, her air conditioner's not working right now in her house, which we're going to help her get that fixed and at least running. It's been, from what she's told me, it's been, hasn't been working for a while, but so it's weird. I don't mind going out of the way, helping with some other things. I mean, I look at it as like, what if this was my mom or somebody in my family? And people need help. And I don't mind rolling up my sleeves, as you know, with people and properties that I'll put in some work.
Yeah. And you know what? There are people in both of our businesses that get the $15 coffee and drive a really, really expensive car and do all of that show. Wouldn't think of helping people with the stuff they need the most help with. And I think, I got to be honest, I think that's that kind of thinking, good business thinking, as opposed to pomp and circumstance business thinking, is what makes the difference in number one and a few bucks.
Well, I think at some point when I came back to real estate after doing the HVAC, and I felt like God called me back to Lantana to do this work, to help these people, the neighborhood where I came from, and the same people that my father, and my mother helped over for years.
Right.
So once I kind of figured that it's not about money, we all got to make money and make a living, but it's about the people. And my dad always taught me, if you took care of the people, then everything else, the money will come.
Yeah.
And don't be worried about that. Focus on the customer and their needs.
And that's why I have to remind people of, in the business that I do consulting in with HVAC contractors around the U.S. and Canada, good process, good character people is what matters, and they need to be rewarded properly for doing a great job. When you get good at that, the revenue and the margins are a byproduct, not a target, not an objective, which is basically what your dad's been talking about for 50 years.
Yeah. And shout out to my parents, Joe and Kathy Woolf. I'm sure they'll be watching this at some point once we get it out there. But so
okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What why did you get into real estate? What was the switch that flipped in your head?
There's a few things, and you know me, I'm honest, and I'll tell you the truth. I grew up in the business with my parents. I used to clean the office, follow them around, go on appointments. I got my license right out of high school. Got my first house when I was 21. I learned sales, and it just came natural. But then right after the crash, the real estate market was bad, and I was having trouble with drugs and alcohol, and I had to get sober. So I got sober, and then I decided, hey, let me try something different. went to HVAC school, got certified in HVAC, and did that for a few years. Kind of give me something else to work on. And to be honest, I was afraid, and what's the word I'm looking for? I was afraid and ashamed of some of the things that I said and did at that time when I was in my life. I was struggling with the drugs and alcohol. So I did air conditioning, and you actually helped me get a couple of those jobs. Did that for a while. I liked it. And then what happened was I was in ministry at Christ Fellowship, what they call Believers in Recovery. And I was helping this one guy, was a sponsor. And he was going through a divorce, and he said, "Hey, could you help me sell my house, short sell my house?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I still had a license." I said, "I guess, yeah, let me try." So we listed it, we sold it, we sold it. And also I got him 10 grand from the mortgage company. I think they were calling it cash for keys, or keys for something. They were calling that.
Yeah, right.
So I got him 10 grand to help him move out. And we became good friends, lifelong friends since. But that kind of got me back in the game. And then the HVAC is really hard on your body. It's tough. I'm getting a little older, and it was beating me down. And the wife was saying, why don't you get back into real estate, and do that. And I just kind of slowly drifted back over, quit doing HVAC, and went back to packed my bags, went back to Lantana, pretty much turned on the lights back to Wolf Realty again, which was kind of in a dire straits, and brought back life to it, or God did. And that's, how we got here today, but.
Yeah. All right. So went through some really tough time, and I know there are people that firmly believe that once an addict, always an addict. One of the things I've observed, never having been an addict, but having a very close eye on people that are climbing out, the reality is it takes an incredible amount of courage, but you can recover from substance addiction.
I agree.
And it's not done because of a higher power. It's done because the one higher power that is real comes in and does the healing. And of course, we're talking about Christ.
Yeah.
It isn't possible without.
I agree.
And one of the hardest things I've observed people try to do is to let go of what they believe now. They believe it with all their heart, that they can do it. They can white knuckle. They can fight through it. I'm tough. But the reality is, eventually, they have to surrender and allow the ultimate healer to do what he promises to do. That is tough to do. I've watched you do that, and that is an incredible fight and very impressive. That
15 years sober.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. That's special, Slim.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah.
Wasn't
okay.
going.
Now, one tough situation.
Yeah.
I look at what's going on with money supply, interest rates, pricing of real estate, which is just insane. Makes no sense at all.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that have been in real estate a long time. Well, we had 12% interest rates. I bought my first home in 1981 at 12%, but it was a $50,000 home.
Yeah, exactly.
And the payment was choking at that.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about small, 1,200 square foot, 1,400 square foot homes.
Yeah.
they're selling between $400,000 and $500,000.
That's right. That's right.
And at 6, 7, 8%, we're talking $3,000, $4,000 a month payment, which has to have just crushed the ability to close if you're not dealing with somebody with huge down payment or paying cash.
Okay.
So in the last year or so now, what are the challenges and what's the outlook for surviving as a real estate agent, number one? But number two, you are still number one in your market in closings. So where's the wisdom in this?
Hopefully we'll do it for a third year, but this is definitely a tough market. I'll tell you right now. I'm a small business, and over the last 7 years, this first 2 quarters was probably the roughest, 6 months that we've had. It's been tough, but we're still being successful because we have a low overhead. We have a presence. We've been around, and I've been through, multiple different kinds of markets. I've been doing this 25 years, and I know what to do and how to kind of buckle down and navigate through those things and help my customers figure that out as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the interest rates makes it difficult. The high prices in South Florida can make it difficult as well. What I've seen is property days on market has gone from 3 to 6 months, depending. I see a lot of sellers making the mistake of pricing too high to begin with, and they'll lose 3 or 6 months and it'll expire. And that's valuable time. But sometimes they just got to figure that out on their own. The other thing is, taxes, insurance is high. The premiums are high, especially for the older homes. If you're buying a 1950s, 60s, or 70s home, the premiums are higher. And if you're east of 95, obviously, right?
Right.
And let me see what else here. I had some notes here written down. Let's see. The other thing that people don't recognize, I think a lot of times it's like buyer and seller, and sometimes it feels like an adversarial thing. But it doesn't necessarily have to be. And a seller can only see from the seller side, and a buyer sees from only the buyer side. I'm in the middle. But what I see is buyers are they're working hard. They got a little bit of a down payment. They have decent credit, but they're also carrying debt, which is another problem for the middle class, the blue collar guy. He's carrying a decent amount of debt as well. And what I'm seeing on closings, that some of these debts need to be paid before they can get closed on the deal. The lender will say, you need to pay your Amex, your this and your that, need to be paid in full at closing. So that makes it difficult too. So you got a high interest rate, high insurance, high priced properties, and you're carrying debt, and inflation too. So it's a lot for people to be able to manage, if you think about it.
And
I don't know what the average blue collar family is carrying in debt, but I'm going to say it's at least $20,000 or $50,000, maybe.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
That might be for some people, that might even be light.
And I wanted to tell you too. So I did a little research before coming on here, that I was looking at the inventory. So that's another aspect of the real estate market. Inventory is high.
Mm-hmm.
It's up about 32.5% year over year for this first quarter.
Wow.
So that's not just one bracket. This is in general, the listings.
Right.
Like the condo market is having a harder time. I'm sure people have heard of that.
Mhm.
So I don't even know if we want to get into that one, but
So, bottom line, as a realtor, as a professional in the real estate world, putting the potential buyer on notice, there's a lot to understand about. Well, without getting too much in the weeds, there's a lot to
well, I
understand
think
about
what I want to,
condo, HOA,
yeah.
close to the water issues. There's a lot to understand before you think you want to live close
Well,
to the
let me.
water in
I
a
just
condo.
the point I was trying to say. What I was trying to say is people need to get outside of their box. Get outside of the seller box, get outside of the buyer box, understand the buyer, understand the seller. Because right now, the buyer wants to buy, he needs help. He needs some concessions. And what that means is when a seller will pay for some of the closing costs or buy down a rate or something. By helping the buyer, you're helping yourself. And what I've seen is you got to look on both sides so you can work together. It's not like one party's against the other. And I see that a lot where there's an argument. Oh, well, he wants closing costs. He's trying to get over on me, or they're asking too much and they won't come off the price and they're trying to make me pay more than it's worth. For me, if the people could look from the get a different perspective, look at both perspectives. If you have them both, then you can kind of work together and understand that the seller's is not your enemy and the buyer's not your enemy. It's two people coming together to make an agreement to the purchase of the home and get it to closing. That's the whole thing.
Taking an adversarial perspective, like you're negotiating against, that works against getting what you want as a seller and as a buyer.
I think you should have an open mind.
Working with
instead of staying, some people are stuck in one way of thinking. You got to be open, at least open to hearing or exploring other offers and terms.
So what I think I'm hearing is working with a realtor that doesn't play negotiator of one against the other, but working with a realtor that says, what are the things we have together to make this work?
What I was taught from my parents is try to get everybody to meet in the middle. I mean, it's good if you had it one way or the other way, but if you can meet in the middle, that's a win.
Right.
And sometimes
everybody has to win for you to win.
And sometimes, depending on a buyer's or seller's market, sometimes you have to give a little more, depending on who's really got the leverage in the deal. If you really can look at it, well, who's got the leverage? And you know what? Maybe you give a little more, or you take a little less, but having it successfully close is what's important.
Okay, so just again, if you're interested in buying real estate, not going in as a negotiator, hard-nosing your way into get what you want. If you choose to do that, you'll just make it more difficult to get what you want or get something close to what you think you want. It's walking into the transaction ready to work with someone else to make the deal come together for both parties.
So there's a couple other points. Got a few more minutes. Looks like the clock's ticked away on us. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about this. Some difficulties I've been seeing with sellers is understanding the market and the actual shift and what's really happened over the last year. That's difficult because sometimes we still think here's another thing about the market. You could look at comps from 6 months ago and it could say that your house is worth 500, but today in the market, it could be worth 480.
Right.
That's because the market's already shifted.
Right.
Those are older comps.
So dealing with comps is to determine value for purposes of qualifying for financing. It's what the value was whenever those comps
within the 6 months or period.
were assembled. If you're in a market where the values are going down, and in any kind of equity investment, values will go up and down. So it's not that you're losing value. It's just if we sell it now, it's instead of 500,000, it's going to be 450,000. It's what it is sellable for is the value that a seller needs to embrace. Is that safe?
Yeah, and it's hard to to really pick that up.
There's an emotional side that says 500. I'm going to give away 50.
I think it's at a moment in time. Right now, it's worth this. 6 months ago, a year ago, it was worth this.
So thinking that it was worth 500, I don't want to lose 50,000. There's no losing 50,000.
It's time, and I'll tell you this: that time is money. So when you're listing a house and you price it high, you're going to lose time. If you price it below market, you're going to gain a lot of time, because you're going to sell quick and you're going to get the money a lot quicker. And when you're on a down, the quicker you sell, the more money you're going to make, because you don't want to sell at the bottom. If you're on the way down, the sooner you sell, the better off you're going to be. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Oh, okay.
So, but and the value
they correlate together, the time and the money.
The value of getting it right lies solely in your understanding of finance and real equity investment. The other thing is, if you don't have experience in those two worlds, working with a realtor that will explain it, deal with it as factual, and guide you to take in a position where you can actually sell your property. Because having a property on the market for 6 months, that in itself brings the value down.
You could say that, and it gets you frustrated. You showed your house 20 times, and it's a waste of time. Happens to the best of us. Even as a professional real estate broker, sometimes we'll take a listing overpriced, mm-hmm. and it bites me in the ass. But it's part of the process. You can't get everything right all the time. You try and do your best, and we got 5 minutes, so let's close this out. And two,
okay.
If you look down in the comments, we're going to put a link to that property that we were talking about on Hypaluxo Road. So I just want to say this, Dennis, thanks again for coming and being a guest. And maybe you might want to come back again and be a part.
Thank you for the invitation, John. And I would love to.
Okay. And let's see here. And thanks everybody for tuning in to the first episode of the Property Wolf podcast, which is kind of exciting, new thing that we're doing. And we look forward to continuing on with guests in real estate and vendors for the upcoming podcast. Make sure that you subscribe to our podcast if you look below, and look for upcoming podcasts and episodes. And I think that was it. So